No. Morning, everyone. um, Thank you for joining me, everyone. Morning to Teresa, Kaz, Anne, Ethel, June, Margaret, Ros, Sarah, Eunice, Carol from Australia. Morning. Are you just getting up or are you just going to bed, Carol? One or the other. So, got a little different thing here for you today. And this is the back plate, it's called, of the sort of crazy squares from Sweet Poppy Stencils. And I'm going to be using a bit of Distress ink, oxide ink with that. And I'm also going to be showing you a slightly different version of using the frames that I had over on Saturday, which was the new ones from Sue Wilson's Noble collection, which are called Clipped Corner Rectangles. There we are. Clip corner rectangles. So I'm going to be incorporating them. So many of you will have received yours in the post hopefully today or any day now. And here's something else that you can use for them. So first of all, I'm going to make a slight background. And this is like a very modern background, but with a sort of, it's going to not quite look old-fashioned and modern all mixed when we've finished with it. So I'm going to use the Distress Oxides because I wanted to give it a creamy, soft effect. And I've used a lot of the Distress Oxides themselves, Distress Inks themselves just recently. So I thought I'd go over and use these for a little bit of a difference. And I have got Scattered Straw for my first colour, Worn Lipstick, and then I've got Wilted Violet. So I'm going to give it a sort of a sunset, if you could call it, mix. So yeah, it's going to be not edge to edge. So I have put it onto my magnetic sheet. I've got a super smooth piece of card here, white card, and I've got that onto my magnetic sheet. So I'm not going to be aiming to get right up to the corners of everything. This is just a subtle thing in the background, really. So that's why I haven't bothered to tape it down or anything, because I don't need to worry about getting it to the edges. The other thing I would point out is I am using some Cheap and Cheerful brushes. The reason why I'm using those is I was waiting for some others to come in, but you shouldn't mix the blending brushes with the oxides and then other inks, because the oxides are a pigment-based ink and they are very sticky, and they will not, well, they won't ruin your brushes, but they will if you then try and put ordinary inks onto them as well. So subsequently, I have just got some cheapy ones that I'm using for my oxide base there, or alternatively, you can then put them so that you've got a whole set that are just for your oxides and then different ones for others. So I'm going to start off with the Scattered Straw down the bottom. So as I said, using the same one brush here, picking up some of the colour. I'm just going to take off the worst of it there, although it's a very subtle colour, so we don't need to worry too much. And I'm just going to go in this bottom section, but just a little bit, so just a pale amount. Hopefully you will be able to see it, because the whole idea is that it's a very pale sort of look. Just going around in small circles and then just popping that so that that's going to be cutting it out anyway, but just in those small sections there. So that's the yellow, and we need to build up these layers, so we're just taking a little bit at a time. So now I'm going in with the Worn Lipstick. Just check. Just need to take some of that colour off first. And then just blending that in with the Scattered Straw, forgotten what it was called. Blending that in a little bit so that the two mix together, and then taking it up a little further with the colour. So I'm not going right to the edges. I'm just keeping that colour as it goes like that. And then I'm taking the Wilted Violet. It's quite a, well, it is a very bright colour, but I'm going to take off some of the colour here first, and then just blending that in again with the Worn Lipstick from behind. So just a subtle colour. Hopefully, hold that up to the camera. Hopefully you could see that, but it is laying down some colour. So then I'm going to go back in with my yellow down the bottom and just bring those two colours again. So we'll be going into sort of like the yellow, mixing with that red will give us an orangey colour in the centre. And then back in with a bit of warm lipstick. Just pick up those colours. So the oxide's going to give you a very creamy finish, and it does take a little longer to dry. So I'm going to hope that we are not going to be thwarted by the fact that we need to give it a bit longer to dry. I'm trying to blend it to the edges so that we've got a softer look at the edge. Okay. So we've got those colours there. I'm going to pop them to one side. There's my yellow one. Okay. So then I can remove my frame, and you can see that we've got a really lovely sort of blended area, but we're going up sunsetty look. Keep that in mind, everyone. We're looking for a sunset. Okay. So it does give a really modern twist to this, because normally, you know, that I would give it a full blend with all of these, but I thought it looked nice. It looks almost, how the theme is that we're going to be almost looking through a window. So then I'm going to bring in one of the Nellie Snellen stamps, and that is the chair. No, what do they call it? Tree with a chair or something. Very, very odd named, I'm afraid. But it's a really pretty one, and it's going to look just fab on here, I think. I'm going to bring in my image, and because I'm going to be cutting this down, I'm going to be looking first of all of my actual dies. So I want to see and frame in my head, if you could call it that, the frame that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to take in my clipped notch rectangles. I'm not going to be using this outer one here, but I am going to use the second one. So I will be using the biggest one in a minute, but the second one is the frame that I've got in mind. So if I pop that there, you'll be able to see what I'm aiming to look at. And so I take my stamp, take my cover, so that in case I do make a pickle, make sure that that's right in that top corner, and know that I've got my image. Let's get the dies going around the right way so we know that we've got my image like that. And then I can put my stamp into position. So I want it to go more or less there. So I'm going to pick that up. I can always move it around a little bit if I need to. Pick that up, and now I can take away both my template and my die, which I'll be using in a second. And then when I close this over, I can just check that that's in the right position for where I want it to be. So that looks good to me. So I'm going to keep that into place. Whoops. Just put a couple of magnets down to hold that in place. And then I'm going to be using VersaFine Claire in Nocturne in the black to stamp up my image. And just whilst I think about it, I have used this image a lot in the Kaleido and haven't washed the Kaleido ink off. Naughty, naughty, although whatever. But point is, I'm showing you that it hasn't ruined the stamp at all. And so we will not be worrying about that. So take that over and see what image we've got. Looking pretty good, but I am going to go a second time on it. Hold on, I'm just looking what you said. Stella, why are you late? You've got no excuses. The stencil should be under the Sweet Poppy. I will just check because it might not have been updated. So it's not on the Facebook Live section. It's on the Sweet Poppy, the stencil that I've got here today. So I've just stamped that up. Just go back over it again. Beauty of a stamping platform. And then you can see a much darker image, which is what I wanted it to be. So I'm going to then take that off. Pop that to one side. And I am going to take my heat gun here just to dry it a little bit, because the ink itself will be damp and I don't want it to smudge, because it is a pigment based one. Okay, because I could use embossing powders with it. And the only downside of the oxides to me is that they will stay wet for a long time, and I don't want it to be too smudged. So I'm just going to give it a quick blast just to dry that off. It is the all squared up one that I'm using, June. Thank you. Yeah, that's what it's called. All squared up. I'm just drying off the distress inks there as well, just so that they're a little bit drier. There you go, just a quick blast. So now I'm going to take in my second size down of the clipped corner rectangles. I'm going to pop that into position so that my tree line here is just going to be on the actual stencil itself. So it's looking pretty good like that, I think. I'm going to tape that into position and I'm going to run that through my machine. Just pop that there. Sounded like my machine didn't want to work much then, didn't it? So now I've cut out with that die my image, which I think is looking good. And again, if I show you close up, hopefully you can see that pretty double-barreled, beveled edge there, which is quite nice. Now, then I have got my next size die. That's the biggest one. And I'm going to cut that from black. And I'm going to put, because it's quite a big die, I'm going to put it into my die cutting machine at a slight angle, because I think it cuts better like that. It has more chance to cut better. And I would recommend doing that with any of the bigger outline dies if you can, is to cut it that way round. So run that one through. Well, you're copying me then, aren't you, Stella? Eh? Copying me, if only you knew. Little rodders. Right, there is my background. So, and there is my bit here. Now, okay, if you recall, on Sunday we made a lovely frame, and that was great as well. The possible downside is that we could have really done with having, I think we could really have done with having a different colour in between. It's a nice border, but I would like to have had a slightly different colour instead. But with the dies, let's bring them back in again. You can see that they go together and there ain't no one in between. So, well, how can we overcome that? hopefully quite simply. I'm going to take a piece of, it's actually some of the very thick papers from, I'm not sure which range actually, but one of the paper boutique ranges. And we're going to go on to the other side, which is white, because these are only one-sided. So I've picked that colour, which is sort of like a dusty pink, because I think that goes quite well with my image there. And I'm going to turn that onto the other side. Do it that way around to be a bit more frugal. And I'm going to tape that into position so that it won't move. And I'm going to draw around it with a pencil. So obviously, if it was a circle, you would find a bit more difficulty. But with this one being the nice straight lines that it is, you can get away with this quite nicely. So I've only kept that in position like that to be able to draw around, no other reason. And then I'm simply going to take my guillotine and I'm going to actually cut along those lines. So the first line will be a little bit hit and miss as to whether we've got it. But once you've got the first line, which I have, I'm then just going to use the guideline of my guillotine here, which is the that silver strip there, and put that so that that is along that line so that I can see where that is cutting. And then I should go around all of the sides to start off with. So cutting that down. That one. So I've cut it out like that. And now I've just got to cut across here. So I put my pencil line on my cutting edge of here and just nip those little corners off. Or clipped corners, clip them off, because that's what it's called. So all the way round. Okay, so that's all done. Now we can turn it back over because this was a single-sided colour. And then if we take our black backgrounds, then our coloured, and once we put that on, we've got like a really thin border all the way around now. And then when we put this one on top, we've also got a perfectly spaced, but also very thin white border, instead of perhaps a slightly too thick a border. And also, I think with the colour, choosing one of the colours that's in here, you could have chosen the yellow or the purple or this pinky colour. It just pulls out those colours quite nicely. So before we're going to do that, just want to put a sentiment on. Now, I did think that the sentiments that I was going to show you were ones that unfortunately, or fortunately rather, that you could have bought. But now when I go to look at the suppliers, we can't. So subsequently, I think we will try anyway. These were the ones from John. Oh, actually, I think they were 2J ones, but John Next Door-ish. And I think that they look quite nice on here. So I am going to still use them and hopefully we will be able to get them back in again. So I'm going to open that up and just pop that so that it is the corners are touching down that side or edges are touching down that side. And I think it would look quite nice going down here. And the whole scene kind of reminds me as if you were sitting on holiday, maybe abroad, because I suppose there's not many of us that have got hills that you're looking out to from your garden, is there? But anyway, on holiday, but thinking of you, it's just a nice little thinking of you because you're not well, thinking of you because sympathy, or just because you're thinking of someone. We are allowed to think of people. There you go. So there is our lovely sentiment on there as well. And then we just pop these together. So again, nice and flat, but with a pretty, I think the pink brings it along. What do you think? What do you think? You could make these up as a batch, couldn't you? And you could put different things, but I think, you know, a retirement card would be lovely with that sort of happy retirement on it or something like that. I think it looks lovely. As always, the colours don't show in their real beauty. Hopefully when I take a picture of it in a minute, it will, and then you'll be able to see. But for those of you that aren't very much into your actual colouring, or look at one of these stamps with all of the detail and think, oh, I can't really do much with that because I couldn't colour it and I'll ruin it if I colour it. Use a background stencil like this one, which gives you something different that breaks it up, and then use some nice framing. I've chosen the clipped corner edges because the angular part of this stencil, you know, if you saw the bubble one the other day, you might like to do the bubble one, but it wouldn't look right to do this angular one into a round thing. Well, I don't think it would anyway. So now we need to get ourselves a card, and I'm going to get myself a big card. So I've got, let's have a look. I have got some 8x8, so I wonder if it would work with an 8x8. Do need to cut this one down a little bit. So yeah, it would fit in with an 8x8. So I've got an 8x8 card. I'm just going to use my guillotine to chop that down, because I don't want it to be 8x8, and I don't want to put a rectangular into a square. So I'm just going to allow it a little bit of a border. Oops. So I'm just placing the card where I want it to be, and then chop down. That woke you up, didn't it? If you weren't awake, that chopping woke you up. Pop that in there, and then just chop that down. So it just gives me a little border. I've got a ready-made card, and I could add a little bit of, I don't know, I could go a bit mad. I won't, but I could add some butterflies and, you know, all sorts to such a thing. So bit of glue there, and then onto my card front. So if you did yours with different colours and different images, it would still look really, really lovely. But I think if you were looking for a retirement card, a sympathy card, a mail card, birthday card, just an I'm thinking of you, hello, all that sort of card, I reckon that's not bad. What do you think? Do we like it? Yeah. I think that the pink did make it pop, and in actual fact, I think if you used any of the other colours, it would look different again. And if you use different colours here as well, it could look like a sunrise instead of a sunset. There you go. So the stencils are, I will pop them onto the Facebook Live section, but they are at the moment in the Sweet Poppy stencil selection of the website. So do go over and have a look there. The stamps are on the Facebook Live section. So that's the pretty new Nellie Snellen ones. Okay, so regardless of the fact that it is Good Friday, join me with your hot cross bun and a cup of tea on Friday morning at 10 o'clock. When we'll be having our fancy Friday. Good Friday. Let's make it a Good Friday, shall we? And I hope you can join me then. And if not, I will be back on Easter Sunday morning with our April card kit, which will be available to order as from Sunday, and will be shipping out to you as from next Wednesday. Okay, so I hope that you have liked today's little offering, and just checking whether anyone's got anything that I need to say. Nope, we're all looking good. So yeah, card kit coming on Sunday, and then on Monday, which is a bank holiday Monday, we will be having a sale. So that I won't be here live to do the sale, but there will be a small sale going on Easter Monday, which is this coming Monday, the 6th, is it, or something? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe the 5th. 5th, I think. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. Hope to see you Friday. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.